Hello, hoping that we are live in the facilitators group. Hopefully, if I'm in the right place. If not, I'm sure Shania will stick me where I'm meant to be. Lovely to see you all. If you're watching this as a live, and just stick in hashtag live. If you're watching it as a replay, stick in hashtag replay in the comments. This just helps us to know who's watching and if you're watching, and if there's any point to us doing lives. I'd like to think that there is. We are going to be sort of just going through some ideas. That's all it is. So do feel free to use the comments section. Add your own ideas if you want to, or some things that you may have done in your groups that are working really well. Today I'm going to talk about the childhood session mainly. We might do another one, depends how long that takes. These are only really quick lives, 10 to 15 minutes, just to kind of give you some ideas and some thoughts for your sessions. As you all know, if you know about CST, there are 14 main sessions in CST, of which childhood is one. And we tend to always sort of check out what are the objectives of those sessions before we start trying to pull a session together. So for the sake of this, the objectives for the childhood session are to promote reminiscence, comparing old with new, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, to stimulate memory and recall, but implicitly rather than putting people on the spot, and promoting the strength of the long-term memory. The great thing about the childhood session, of course, is that we are going to be using mainly long-term memory, which, as we know in dementia, is a real strength. So childhood sessions always tend to be great, but there is always this danger, if you like, of moving into just it being a reminiscence therapy session, which is very, very different from a cognitive stimulation therapy session. So in reminiscence, we would just go over old thoughts and opinions and ideas and memories. We would use just sort of stay completely in the childhood time rather than bringing it into the here and now, which is what we do very much in CST, is that comparison of old and new. And so your childhood session, when you're pulling it together, you need to be thinking about how can I, of course, reminisce and of course build on that that strength of long-term memory, whilst also bringing in the here and now. So, for example, comparing old toys with new toys. So you imagine having the old wooden toys that you can sometimes get hold of. We found, as an example, that nurseries are a really good place to go because they often do a similar session. So you'll often do a session around their toys that they have now and toys that they would have had in olden days. So we had a big box of old toys that we used to borrow from the local nursery to do this very session. There's lots of ways that we can share our resources around the community, and this is one of them. The other thing to say is, and you may have heard me say this many times before, but I always think that it's really good to say it again because, you know, sometimes we listen to things differently depending where we are. It's really important that we're not just going over the same old stuff again and again, but that also we are getting people to think a little bit, I hate to use the term outside the box, but helping them to think slightly differently. So rather than just telling the same story again and again, and because we're compassionate, kind people, we'll listen to that story again and again and respond like it's the first time. But also there's other things that we can do in that conversation that help people to really create new connections really in their brain, so that we can ask them their opinion about what something might have smelt like, or what it might have felt like, or what sounds that they might have been hearing at the time that they're recounting that memory. So really thinking about what else can we do as a facilitator to ensure that we are creating new connections as people are talking. So that's what I mean by comparing old and new. It's not necessarily just going over the same thing again and again. So I'm just going to go through potential sessions that you can do, and certainly ones that I've done in the past that have gone down really well. I've talked about old old toys that you can bring in. And there are some great ones that are sort of really, really interactive that often you don't need to do much other than just kind of pile them onto the table so people can start to explore them again. Maybe things that they've not done for a really long time. It could be things like pick up sticks. You know, when you get a big pile of sticks and you have to kind of pull one out without moving the others. You know, and already I'm thinking about what that's doing to the brain just playing that game. Hoopla is a great one, and one that you can pick up pretty much anywhere. The other one is hopscotch, or skipping ropes, yo-yos, spinning tops, conkers. Great time of year at the moment to be gathering conkers and having a go at those. And then obviously you've got those props to either play the actual game or have a go at remembering or thinking about how that game worked, and then also to sort of just discuss and to chat about the things that they see in front of them. So one of the sessions that I once did with not very much preparation was to play something called Five Stones. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's something that was very, very popular. So my clients tell me from the times when people used to play outside the whole time and didn't necessarily have toys, so would make up games with what they had around them. So Five Stones is one of those games where they would have 5 stones. I tried to find some earlier. Well, when I say earlier, I was not necessarily prepared for this either, so just kind of in my house. I did find 1 stone and a coin and a peg. And just to show you, basically the game was to put the 5 stones on the back of their hand, and then they would flip it up. I'm going to try and do it now without breaking my computer. Flip it up in the air and then try and catch it. So I caught 2. That's not bad. So basically, that's the game of 5 stones. So really, really simple. And what I have found in groups is that very often they've got lots of games like that they would have played that that others may have heard of and you may not have. And there's a really good way of learning from other people in the session. So that's 5 stones. It's obviously very similar to jacks. If you can get hold of jacks, again, something that just kind of takes over the table, people just start to play it. You don't really need to do very much as a facilitator other than make sure that you're asking those opinions. Another one is using sweets, so using old sweets, which are becoming very popular now. So we've got a few traditional sweet shops where we live, with the candy stripe bag and everything. So just to kind of have a look at those and just again to use it as a prop to reminisce. And then there's lots of sort of question prompts that we can use in the childhood session as well to talk about, what words would you use to describe yourself as a child? So again, you're bringing in childhood, but you're really getting to think about naming and word finding. So what words would you use to describe yourself as a child? Are there different words that you would describe yourself as an adult or as yourself now? Are they similar? Are there some words that you would have used to describe yourself as a child that are very similar to who you are now, the essence of you, if you like, that you've brought into your adulthood? Another great discussion point is about discipline and asking how would you discipline your child or your children. Do you think it's different to how we discipline children today? You can have some great debates about this. Are we too soft on our children today? How do they feel about capital punishment? Is it capital punishment using a ruler to hit children? I mean, it's really, really interesting conversations to have. What do they think are the main differences between growing up today and growing up back in the day? So again, you're comparing old with new, and if you can use pictures and props to do that, that really works really well. Do you think play is important? Is it important that children play? And then one of the sessions that I did a long time ago was about how we got to school. So how we get to school back then and how we got to school now. And also I've got a great article, and I'll try and find it so I can stick it in the chat, of of how children get to school all around the world. And there's some great clips of children getting to school on boats or across massive bits of rope that they have to sort of pull their way in the great canyons. And this created some great discussion as well. So I will find that for you in a moment, and I'll stick it in the comments. Would you rather be a child or a grown-up? Some really good discussions. Did you have any favourite people when you were a child? So again, we're trying to, as much as we can, avoid asking those questions that require memory. And you could say that that one does require memory. Did you have a favourite person when you were a child? But make sure you've got lots of questions that are around opinion. Would you rather be a child or a grown-up? That's a great one for opinion. So yeah, so that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour on what you could do for the childhood session. But you know, the most important things is to make sure that you stick to your objectives at the beginning, and obviously think about differentiation. Are there ways that you can bring people in who might struggle with some of that conversation? Can you use language prompts? Can you help people with aphasia to be able to perhaps point to things rather than actually speak, if they can? Yeah, I think that's about it. I think that'll do for the childhood session. I'll be back here next time to look at another of the 14 sessions. And if you've got any comments or any questions, do feel free to ask me. I'm really, really happy to answer questions. And it's lovely to see you. Of course, one last thing I have to say is if you did want more training, then we do offer training at Memory Matters. So we do that online, and we do live CST training as well if you fancy it. But if you want to know about that, contact me or Shania in the group, and we'll let you know a bit more about it. Take care and have a great day.